Hey, this is Danni Dikes. I'm here with Jake Rothstein. He is the founder and CEO of UpsideHōM, an exciting new living option for older adults. And he's going to help me bring you the news you can use for your family. Hey there, Jake. How are you?
Hey, Danny, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So tell me about UpsideHōM. It seems like an awesome new company.
Yeah, sure. So UpsideHōM is reimagining senior living. We are taking the sort of old senior living model and breaking it up into pieces, essentially creating a real estate plus services model. So typically when you look at a senior living community, you're in a building and you're with a bunch of other people your age and sort of that are in your stage of life. And what we said is people don't necessarily want to be in that type of setting anymore now, especially because of COVID. It's really shone a light on the industry for people to think about alternatives. And so what we're saying is we're going to manage an apartment for you, and then we're going to add this layer of services, all accessed through a single point of contact to sort of recreate the experience that a person might get in a senior living community, but do it outside the walls of a community and do it with more affordability, more flexibility, and really more individualization in the services that someone might need.
And you started this last year, right when the pandemic started. So, what has that been like for you navigating this new company, trying to raise awareness about it during a time when so many people are now afraid to put their loved ones in nursing homes, in assisted living centers?
It's a great question. It's sort of a double-edged sword for us. So it's really, COVID has accelerated the demand for and interest in alternatives to traditional senior living. So we've seen our pipeline really blow up as a result of that. So there's a tremendous amount of interest. On the flip side of that, people are still hesitant to tour in person, and they're still hesitant to sell their homes that they might be in. So there is a sales cycle that's a little bit longer than what we anticipated. Even though we've already started moving people in, it is a longer cycle than we thought as a result of COVID, but the interest and our reservation lists are really exploding. So that's a really good sign. And, it's been a double-edged sword for us in terms of COVID.
Definitely. And tell me more about the individualized option or the option to live with your friends or people that you may not know, but you can connect to through this service.
Sure. So yeah, we came at this whole thing as a result of really learning and entrenching ourselves in the senior community, so to speak. And we realized that people are very, very lonely. And whether they're willing to admit it or not, we really wanted to build a solution that tackled loneliness and to do it in a really complete way and a way that we could do it at scale. And so what we said was, we kind of want to create like a Golden Girls style living. So fully managed apartments with individual leases per bedroom. So you're not taking the risk for your friend. And if you don't have a friend, we can match you with someone compatible if you choose to live on your own. So we offer both single units for individuals that might be able to afford to live on their own and just really want a fully managed experience. But we also offer this more affordable, what we call a social option for people that might be lonely, that might want to interact with other people, that might want to sort of built-in companion, we call it. And then, of course, this idea of active engagement, this involvement in the community that you are living in. A lot of times what we find is that there are so many services and events and activities and experiences that surround all of us. But a lot of times, especially for older adults, it's hard to know where those things are and how to access them and when they're happening. And so one of the things that we do is we say, oh, this individualized aging, this idea of that we have a home management team. We call it a home management team. It's really like an account management team. That team gets to really know and understand the things that our residents love and the things that they like to do and their eating habits and their grocery habits, and build a real relationship with them in order to guide them to doing the things that might really interest them. And so as opposed to a traditional senior living community where there's bingo in the lobby at 5 o'clock, and whether you like bingo or not, that's what's going on, we say, Paul Simon is coming to town and playing at the Guitar Hotel next week. Why don't we get you tickets, and why don't we get you to and from there? Because you've indicated to us that you really like Paul Simon, and we hear you playing it all the time when we're on the phone with you. And so that is a sort of a customized experience that we can provide that, senior living communities just can't do that, because we're sort of taking the walls away from senior living. We're almost acting like a senior living community in disguise, because we're nestled in existing apartment communities. but with all the services and amenities and features that that you might be able to get, and then some from senior living.
And I feel like it also reduces the stigma of being in an assisted living facility, especially if you're a younger adult who's now living alone and you're looking for a different option, something that sounds a little bit more exciting per se.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And so many people tell us that they don't ever want to move into a assisted living or memory care. And the ultimate reality is that some people might ultimately need to do that. Where we really see ourselves fitting is in the 80 to 90% of people that tell us that, and tell every survey that they're, when they're asked, that they want to age in place. And so this idea of aging in place is a really nice one, right? When you're 55 years old and you're still at the height of your career, when someone asks you, when you're still feeling good in mind and body, whether you want to stay in your big house with a big staircase, of course you're going to say yes, that sounds really great. But the reality is that when something happens, God forbid something happens, but when it does ultimately happen, you get old, you are more prone to a fall. You're more prone to being a fall risk, or being alone because the death of a spouse, or because maybe you need some more cash because you sort of ran out of the money that you thought you were going to be able to live on for the rest of your life, but things are really more expensive than you thought they'd be. And so it's these triggering events that really cause people to say, you know what, I want to age in place, but it's not really practical for me to do so anymore. I'd like to stay in the community that I'm in, so I'm close to the doctors that I know, and I'm close to my grandchildren, and I'm close to my friends that I play canasta with at the country club. Those are the things that are really important to people. We've learned that just from talking to a lot of people that are finding this interesting. And so what we say is, we'd like you to be able to age in proximity, not necessarily age in place. And that means you can do it in a safer, more flexible way than you might otherwise have done in your 1920s colonial house that you raised your kids in, where it's not very practical to age.
Exactly. And you mentioned Golden Girls before, so I have to ask, were you inspired by the show to create this?
That was part of the inspiration, but I'd say the primary inspiration was my own grandmother. And so, when my grandfather passed away, my grandmother found herself alone, right? But she was still very able-bodied. She was the youngest 87-year-old I've ever known. And so she had friends, and she had, a social life, but when she got home at the end of every day, she was alone. And so we wound up selling her house and moving her into a smaller apartment in the same neighborhood that she knew and loved. And I sort of acted, and my cousin sort of acted as her home manager. And I said to myself, like, my grandma's not the only one that's living alone at 87, that's completely able-bodied and able-minded, but she doesn't like driving at night anymore. So I got to take her to, when we go to dinner, or she can't really grocery shop on her own anymore. Or when she needs a ride to a doctor and it's a sort of a last minute thing, she doesn't really feel comfortable driving beyond 3 miles. So those are the things that really inspired us to, come up with this vision, this thing, that's an articulate way of putting it, to build a model around someone like my grandmother, who needs everything short of care, but really wants the wellness based activity. I mean, she's doing yoga into her 80s. Like, this is a person that lived by, the way we all want to live at 87. And so we want to create that environment for people and do it in a supportive way versus an assistive way.
And what I also really like about UpsideHōM is the fact that you do have that one point of contact for anything you could possibly need. It's so much more easy to navigate.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone talks about building tech and really high tech and getting older adults to interact with tech. And we've seen a really big accelerated adoption of technology, especially during COVID, where I taught my grandmother to use Zoom, which was, a whole different story. But the reality is that older adults have a very widely varying ability to use and interact with technology. In 10 years, it might be different. And so what we said is, we want to put a human between all of this fantastic modern 21st century technology, which we have and which we're building, but put the human between that technology and the older adult themselves to give them a variety of access points. So you have a single point of contact. You can get in touch with them via phone. You can get in touch with them via text. You can get in touch with them via email. You can call them on FaceTime or Zoom. But we're going to use tech on our side to create efficiencies and to create a really, really great experience that we can then deliver to our residents. And so that learning was sort of in dealing with this demographic and understanding how they might interact with and engage with technology. It has to be in a human way, and that's what we really learned.
And talk about the billing process, because I saw that you've combined everything. So instead of an older adult receiving 5 different bills for different services, now it's all in one, which is just so much better for them.
Yeah, when you think about it, from a millennial perspective, I mean, you move into an apartment, you got to hook up your FPL account, you got to hook up your water, and you got to pay your taxes and your renter's insurance and all this different stuff. And it's cumbersome for a 20 something or for
Yeah.
a 30 something.
Oh,
What
yeah.
what must that be like for an 85-year-old? It's cumbersome. And a lot of times that burden falls on the older adult child. And so that older adult child, whether they're in the same geography or not, and increasingly we're seeing older adult children that live in New Jersey or live in Vermont or live in Texas. And so it becomes really challenging for a family to care for an aging older adult or an aging loved one, a parent, otherwise. And so what we said is, let's do all of that heavy lifting for them. Let's make this whole thing completely turnkey so that a person could walk into this unit, the furniture, at least in the common areas, is there. And we said, you can personalize your own bedroom and we'll help you do that. And at the end of the month, any service that you order, any meal that you get, any Uber that you order from your home manager, it's all on one single bill. It's all at the end of the month, and it's automatically withdrawn from your account at the end of the month. And it's approved as you go. So you make sure that we're charging everyone the right amounts and making sure that there's no billing issues at the end of the
Can
month.
I
But
have this?
simplicity is truly the key.
Seriously.
Interestingly enough, we're getting a lot of young people coming to our website and saying, we really loved your communities. Oh my God, they're beautiful. The pools are amazing. The gyms are amazing. And what we're realizing is that we're trying to create an aspirational brand, a brand that you or I can see yourself living in, because ultimately we're building this for ourselves. Because in 70 years, I'm building this because I want to live in a place like this. And our team is completely dedicated to putting ourselves in the shoes of our residents, because we've lived these experiences. And the one thing that I'll say is that this relates, everyone can relate to this. Everyone knows and loves someone that's an aging older adult. And it doesn't take a lot of imagination to understand where we could fit into that piece of the puzzle.
And I know that you guys are looking to expand to other cities as well as other states. Tell me about that.
Sure. So we're now operating in all 3 counties in South Florida: Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach. And we have plans to expand in the second half of this year to Northern Florida, Orlando, Jacksonville, Tampa, and also moving into Georgia and Atlanta and the suburban areas of Atlanta, and also North Carolina. So we're moving fast. We have a lot of demand, more than we know how to handle right now. And so we're making sure to really button ourselves up so that we can expand correctly and properly, and to meet the quality standards that we've set for ourselves and for our residents.
And you mentioned that these are all very affordable prices. So tell me a little bit more about the pricing.
Sure. We want to make this accessible, right? And affordable is a relative term, we've learned. There's people that can afford $5,000 a month, and that's cheaper than what they might have paid on a mortgage before. And then there's people that are at the $1,000 amount. And we want to be able to, and we can cater to a really vast array of people along the financial spectrum. And what we said was, well, okay, we can offer really luxury apartments, and we do, and we can offer more market rate apartments for a more affordable option. And then an additional sort of piece to this affordability thing is being able to share the unit. And that's really, the social option is our most affordable option. But it's also the most fun. And so I would, argue that there's people that can surely afford a single unit themselves, a fully managed unit with all of the different services and amenities that we offer, but that are preferring to live in a shared unit because they don't want to be alone. And so, affordability is a big piece of this, but it's not the only piece. And so we're able to cater to because of the flexibility in the model, we're able to cater to a large array of types of people.
And how can someone reserve one of these homes?
Sure, you can call or email us, or visit our website at www.UpsideHōM, that's HOM without the E.com, and get in touch with our team. And they're standing by all the time, and we're talking to people all day long. So we'd love to talk to you.
Anything else you would like to add?
No, I really appreciate the opportunity for this interview, and it's been really fun, and we hope to do more of them in the future.
I hope so too. Thank you again so much for speaking with me, and it was great catching up with you again.
Absolutely. You too.